G'day fellow creatures over the internet, this is multicultural and subscribe to Argonian on YouTube, Bruzo Dragonius. As you already know, we are approaching here in Australia, we are pretty much in autumn, whereas over there in the United States, it's getting to be a bit spring. And since that we're getting to mid-autumn or something like that, I don't really have any ideas at the moment, so I just thought since Easter is approaching, I'll just end up talking about how we ended up celebrating Easter here in Australia. So anyway, I know for sure this is just a bit of a quick video, just because that I don't really have any ideas and all that kind of stuff, and it's been a long time. So first of all, I'm not quite sure when we normally approach the Easter holidays and all that kind of stuff, but around Easter and all that kind of stuff, we end up having, when we're in primary school, or you might as well just call yourself elementary school, over there, depending on where you live, we normally just have those, something that's similar to the Bookwick parade, where we just go up around in circles and all that kind of stuff. But instead of just in costumes and all that kind of stuff, we ended up wearing those, most likely the cardboard hat that little kids with their parents sort of made themselves, usually decorate with either peeps or little plastic chickens and chocolate eggs being stuck onto each hat or something like that, which we just ended up calling them as the Easter Hat Parade. It's just basically where us as primary school kids tend to walk around and probably showcasing what would have been, I'd like to say, our own work and all that kind of stuff, but what's really our parents' work and that for us, most likely, in our parents' craftsmanship and all that kind of stuff, you know. And I'm not quite sure that if we ended up getting some prizes and all that kind of stuff. I'm not quite sure, just depending on what you do in primary school. I'm just pretty much knowing what I did as a kid and all that kind of stuff. I know for sure that I'm not breaking a magic tea with my human hands and all that kind of stuff. And I know for sure that our parents end up watching us walking around and showcasing and all that kind of stuff. And depending on where we are, we ended up having the usual visit from the Easter Bunny and that, where someone goes around and cosplays as the Easter Bunny. You know, it pretty much varies depending on what school that you go to or whatever. And then there's these sales that's going on. I know for sure that we ended up around this time of year. I know for sure that every single year and all that kind of stuff, ever since the beginning of the year, it's getting overly commercialized more and more earlier, where they have like hot cross buns of different flavors and that. Probably starting around January, varying from store to store. And then when it gets closer in that, there's various retail businesses decorating their stores for Easter and have massive sales on Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff. Where some shops like Coles or Woolies or whatever usually put together colouring competitions varying by age and all that kind of stuff in all categories, and they just tend to have some Easter theme colouring in pictures and all that kind of stuff. That some shops, yet again, usually just put them on doors or probably on display on the windows and all that kind of stuff, which will then be judged by, I don't know how it goes and all that kind of stuff, because I'm not really into colouring in pictures and all that kind of stuff. And then when April approaches and all that kind of stuff, even though that usually there's April Fools, probably on the 1st of April. And then the main thing of Easter starts on the Friday and all that kind of stuff. Where basically on Good Friday, seeing that I know for sure that here in Australia we tend to follow Christian charities and that, even though that we are a multicultural country, which I do get, but I'm just going with the Christian tradition of how Easter is observed, where basically some of us go out to watch like soccer and probably rugby league and AFL and all that kind of stuff. But usually on Good Friday, there's this tradition that the way that we observe it is that there is a rule, a religious sort of rule that would prevent us, or that will tell us that we're not allowed to eat red meat. So instead of eating red meat, what do? Or we eat seafood. So usually barista lunch, or dinner or whatever, where some of us that is observing it practice this sort of tradition that you're not allowed to eat any land animal, but instead have a pescatarian diet. Pescatarian is meaning fish, that we get our protein from fish and seafood. And the reason why we end up doing it, because in pretty much within the Bible, I know that I'm not going I'm sorry that I will sorry that I'm forcing down religion, but some guy that is on the verge of death and persecution, you most commonly known as Jesus, have some miracle of of turning one morsel of fish to a whole entire abundance of fish. And then on Easter Saturday and all that, we don't really do much. Easter Saturday ends up, watching sport like we do almost every single weekend, basically. And then Easter Sunday, I know for sure that, I don't know how Jews would celebrate Easter or whatever, but those of us that are religious usually go into church, probably having some sort of an Easter pageant, or some sort of a major church service, just going in there, just being reminded of the fact that Jesus had, or some guy by the name of Jesus had died for the sins and yada yada yada. But in between that, some of the free-to-air channels and all that kind of stuff, they usually put some plethoras of religious programming, religious movies. Normally that sometimes they show the story of the story of Moses, and the exorcist of the Jays being slaves and then being going to some other place because they're free, because of the plagues and all that kind of stuff. But coming into Sunday after church, many of the families in Australia have some sort of an Easter egg hunt, where it just basically where our parents usually hide various eggs around the garden or around the yards or whatever. And then there's kids end up going around and hunt for eggs that some fairy, which is the Easter Bunny, have hidden and all that kind of stuff, because the Easter Bunny is more of an Easter thing, and has that turn of Easter, which is sort of compared to what Santa is in Christmas. where he apparently hides the eggs, and the kids usually goes around hunting them, and then later on just end up eating the chocolate and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a mixture of Christian holiday and all that kind of stuff, and then Sunday it's borderline pagan and all that kind of stuff. So and I don't know if we have barbecues here. I don't know if we, many of us here in Australia ended up watching sport within the weekend and all that kind of stuff as normal. But sometimes I remember with my family at times, for some of the health conscious families, we ended up getting toys, instead of chocolate eggs. Even though that, depending on what I say, again, it just varies from family to family, because I know for sure that here in Australia we're more of a multicultural country. So I just wanted to talk about how here in Australia we celebrate Easter, which you probably may find that it's a lot similar to the majority of other countries and all that kind of stuff. Whether it's United States or even though that there would be major Easter egg hunt near the White House, and the Easter bunny visits and all that kind of stuff, like make an appearance. So anyway, I just wanted to just trying to be a bit open of what we do here in Australia. So anyway, I'm just going to end it from there. So I'm just wondering, how do you celebrate Easter? And is there any other way that you celebrate or something like that, like going to church or, with get-togethers? I know for sure that in Italy, they have some sort of an Easter bread called panettone. I know that. So anyway, I'm just curious. How do you normally celebrate Easter in where you are? Am I right that it's just basically the same thing as here in Australia? Or do you celebrate Easter differently? Maybe that you're Jewish and you don't even celebrate Easter at all. Maybe that you have you instead celebrate Passover because Jesus is basically just a person to you, or whatever. I'm just very curious. It's just, yeah. Also, if you do enjoy this video, make sure that you press the like button. If you want to support me further in that, show me your support by pressing the subscribe button. And if you do, bring that notification bell icon so you will be the first person to know. Also, there's other ways that you can follow me on social media if you have any access to it. The other social media and ways to give me money and supporting me is also on this description down below. If you want to find me on PSN, or if you usually find me on PSN, in Tamriel, look for my gamer tag of Bruzo 21. And all that kind of stuff. And as always, thank you for watching me blabbering on and what we do around here in Australia around this time of the year. And thank you so much for subscribing to the channel if you're new to this channel. And in case that you haven't, well, please help me out, help the channel grow or whatever by pressing the subscribe button. And thank you for watching this. And as always, may this guide you all. Bye for now.